James Sullivan clutched his worn leather portfolio with trembling hands as he walked out of Vertex Technologies' gleaming headquarters. The interview had been a disaster. He'd stumbled over his words, blanked on technical questions he knew the answers to, and worst of all, his phone had rung twice with calls from his daughter's school. By the time the hiring manager's tight smile signaled the end, James knew he'd blown his chance at the job that could have changed everything for him and 8-year-old Emma. What he didn't know was that the company's reclusive billionaire CEO was watching from the shadows, about to chase him down the street in a moment that would transform both their lives forever. If you're moved by stories of second chances and unexpected kindness, hit that like button and subscribe to see more life-changing moments that remind us of our shared humanity. The morning had started with such promise. James had woken before his alarm, carefully ironed his only dress shirt, and practiced his interview responses while Emma ate her cereal. She'd straightened his tie before he dropped her at school, her small fingers working with surprising dexterity. "You're gonna get this job, Daddy," she'd said with absolute certainty. "And then we can get a bigger apartment where I can have my own room with purple walls." James had smiled, not wanting to dampen her enthusiasm with adult worries about their dwindling savings, the mounting medical bills from her asthma treatments, or the fact that this was his 11th interview in 3 months. Since losing his software development position during company-wide layoffs, he'd been piecing together freelance work while applying for full-time roles, but nothing had materialized. Vertex Technologies represented his best hope, a growing tech company with excellent benefits and a salary that would provide stability. He'd spent weeks preparing, studying their products, and refining his portfolio. But from the moment he entered the interview room, everything went wrong. The 3 interviewers seemed distracted and unimpressed. The technical lead, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper questions, had zeroed in on gaps in his recent work history. "I see you've been freelancing," she'd said, the word sounding like a euphemism for unemployment in her clipped tone. "How have you kept your skills current?" James had launched into his prepared answer about self-directed learning and personal projects when his phone vibrated. He'd apologized and silenced it, losing his train of thought in the process. 10 minutes later, when it rang again, the atmosphere in the room had chilled noticeably. By the time the hiring manager stood to end the interview 15 minutes early, James knew he'd failed. The crushing weight of disappointment settled on his shoulders as he gathered his materials. "We'll be in touch," the manager said, not meeting his eyes, the universal signal that no such contact would ever come. In the elevator down to the lobby, James checked his phone. 2 missed calls from Emma's school. His heart raced as he listened to the voicemail. Emma had had a mild asthma attack during gym class. She was fine now, but they wanted him to know. Relief mingled with fresh anxiety. He needed this job not just for the money, but for the health insurance. Emma's condition required regular medication and occasional emergency care that his limited freelance income couldn't reliably cover. As he pushed through the revolving doors into the bright spring morning, James felt utterly defeated. The contrast between the gleaming corporate tower behind him and his uncertain future ahead was too much. He stopped on the sidewalk, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. "Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, wait." The voice came from behind him, urgent and commanding. James turned to see a man jogging toward him, his expensive suit jacket flapping open, tie slightly askew. It took James a moment to recognize Alexander Reid, the founder and CEO of Vertex Technologies, whose face graced the company website and occasional business magazine covers. "Mr. Sullivan," Reid said again, slightly out of breath as he reached James. "I'm glad I caught you." James stared in confusion. "Mr. Reid? I don't understand. I was observing your interview from the adjacent room. We have a two-way mirror, part of my process for key positions." Reid straightened his tie. "I saw what happened in there, and I don't think you got a fair assessment." James felt heat rise to his face. The CEO had witnessed his humiliation firsthand. "Those calls you received," Reid continued. "They seemed important. Family emergency? My daughter, James admitted. She's 8. The school called because she had an asthma attack. She's okay, he added quickly. Something shifted in Reid's expression. And you still stayed to finish the interview? I needed to. We need this job. I'm a single dad, and... James trailed off, embarrassed by his candor. Reid nodded slowly. Walk with me, he said, gesturing down the street. It wasn't a request. As they fell into step together, Reid spoke again. 10 years ago, I was in your position. Not exactly, but close enough. My wife was battling cancer. I was trying to launch this company while spending nights in hospital rooms. During one investor pitch, my phone kept ringing with updates on her condition. I ignored the calls to finish my presentation. He paused. She died that night while I was securing our first round of funding. I never got to say goodbye. James didn't know how to respond to such a personal revelation. The thing is, Mr. Sullivan, I recognized something in that interview room today. You were torn between your professional obligations and your daughter. But unlike me, you kept checking your phone. You were ready to run out if she really needed you. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. They stopped at a small park where businesspeople were eating lunch on benches. Technical skills can be taught or refreshed, Reid continued. But integrity, dedication, and proper priorities, those are innate. My company needs people who understand that family comes first, because that perspective brings humanity to our work. James felt a flicker of hope but remained cautious. I appreciate that, sir, but I did bomb those technical questions. Reid waved his hand dismissively. You were distracted. Understandably so. But I looked at your portfolio before the interview. Your work is solid. More importantly, I saw how you've been using your skills during your unemployment, developing that free app to help parents track their children's medical needs. James was startled. You know about MediKid? It's just a small project I started after Emma was diagnosed. A project that shows initiative, compassion, and technical skill, Reid interrupted. The exact qualities Vertex needs as we expand our healthcare technology division. Reid reached into his pocket and handed James a business card. I'm offering you a position, Mr. Sullivan. Not the one you interviewed for. Something better suited to your experience and personal insight. Senior developer on our new pediatric healthcare platform. The salary is 20% higher than the position you applied for, with flexible hours and the option to work remotely when your daughter needs you. James stared at the card, certain he had misheard. I don't understand. Why would you? Because 10 years ago, I made the wrong choice, Reid said quietly. And I've built a company where no one else should have to make that choice. Excellence in business and being there for family shouldn't be mutually exclusive. James struggled to find words. Mr. Reid, I don't know what to say. Say you'll come back tomorrow to sign the paperwork. And bring your daughter for a tour. I think she'd enjoy seeing where her father works. Reid smiled. And I believe there was something about purple walls for her room? James laughed in disbelief. You heard that? I make it my business to listen carefully, Reid said. It's how I've built this company, by paying attention to what matters to people. As Reid turned to leave, he added, one more thing. That MediKid app of yours, I think Vertex should acquire it and develop it further. With proper resources and distribution, it could help thousands of families. We can discuss terms tomorrow. James watched as the billionaire CEO walked back toward the towering headquarters, still trying to process what had just happened. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's after-school program. How did the interview go, Dad? With fingers still trembling, but now from excitement rather than despair, James typed, better than I could have imagined, Em. Much better. The next morning, James and Emma stood in the lobby of Vertex Technologies, both dressed in their best clothes. Emma's eyes were wide as she took in the sleek modern space. "This is where you're going to work, Daddy?" she asked, squeezing his hand. "It looks that way, sweetheart," he replied, still hardly believing it himself. Alexander Reid appeared from an elevator, dressed more casually than the day before in jeans and a button-down shirt. He crouched down to Emma's level. "You must be Emma." "I'm Alex. Your dad is going to help us build something really important here." Emma studied him seriously. "Are you really a billionaire?" Reid laughed. "That's what they tell me. But you know what? Having all the money in the world doesn't matter much if you don't have people who care about you. Your dad taught me something important yesterday." "What did he teach you?" Emma asked curiously. Reid glanced up at James. "He reminded me that sometimes the most valuable things aren't on a resume. They're in how we live our lives and care for the people we love." As they toured the facility, Reid showed them the office James would occupy, a corner space with large windows and a small adjoining room. "What's this for?" James asked, pointing to the smaller room. "That," Reid said, "is for days when Emma might need to come to work with you. We've equipped it with a desk for homework, books, and a tablet loaded with educational apps. There's a similar space on every floor for employees with children." James was speechless. "Vertex isn't just about technology," Reid explained. "It's about creating solutions that make life better. That starts with how we treat our own people." Later, as they signed the employment contract and acquisition agreement for the MediKid app, Reid shared his vision for the company's new healthcare initiative. "Your experience as both a developer and a parent of a child with medical needs gives you a unique perspective that our team has been missing. I don't just want you to code, I want you to help shape how we approach these solutions." 3 months later, James sat in a conference room presenting the expanded MediKid platform, now called Vertex Care, to the company's executive team. The app had been enhanced with features for medication tracking, appointment scheduling, and direct communication with healthcare providers. A clinical trial with 3 major children's hospitals was showing promising results for improving medication adherence and reducing emergency visits. Emma's asthma was better managed than ever, and their new apartment indeed had a bedroom with purple walls. But more importantly, James had found something he hadn't expected, a workplace that valued his whole self, including his role as a father. One evening, as James was preparing to leave the office at a reasonable hour to attend Emma's school play, Reid stopped by his office. "I have something to show you," the CEO said, leading James to a wall near the main entrance where the company displayed its core values and mission statement. A new plaque had been added, "The Sullivan Principle. We recognize that our employees' greatest contributions often come from the wisdom they gain outside these walls." James stared at the plaque in disbelief. "The board unanimously approved it last week," Reid explained. "Your story has changed our company culture. Since implementing flexible schedules and family-first policies, productivity has increased by 23%, and employee turnover has dropped to almost zero." "I don't know what to say," James managed. "You don't need to say anything. Just keep reminding me of what matters." Reid checked his watch. "Now, don't you have a school play to attend?" As James watched Emma on stage that evening, playing the part of a brave explorer discovering new worlds, he reflected on the strange twist of fate that had led him here. A failed interview that should have been another setback had instead become the turning point in his life, all because someone in power had recognized the value in his apparent weakness. His phone vibrated with a text from Reid, "How's our star performer doing?" James smiled and typed back, shining brightly. "Thank you for making it possible for me to be here to see it." The reply came quickly, "No, James. Thank you for showing me what I almost missed by running my company the way everyone else does. Some of the best business decisions come from remembering we're human first." 1 year later, Vertex Technologies was featured in Business Week as one of the most innovative workplaces in America. The article highlighted the company's family-friendly policies and the remarkable retention and productivity statistics that had resulted. The centerpiece of the story was the chance encounter that had led to these changes, a CEO chasing down a failed job candidate and finding a new business philosophy instead. The Vertex Care platform had expanded nationally, helping thousands of families manage chronic childhood conditions. James now led a team of 30 developers, many of them parents who had been attracted by the company's reputation for work-life balance. At the company's annual retreat, Reid asked James to address the assembled employees. Nervous but confident, James took the stage. A little over a year ago, I walked out of this building certain I had failed. I was a single dad with a sick child and dwindling options. What I didn't know was that my greatest professional liability, my divided attention, would be seen by someone as my greatest asset. He paused, looking out at the faces watching him. We often talk about bringing our whole selves to work, but few companies truly make space for that. Here at Vertex, we've discovered that when people don't have to choose between being good parents and good employees, they become exceptional at both. In the audience, Emma sat beside Reid, her formerly shy demeanor replaced with confident poise. She had become something of a mascot for the company, occasionally offering her 8-year-old perspective on the usability of their pediatric healthcare apps. The lesson I've learned, James continued, is that our apparent failures often contain the seeds of our greatest contributions. My failed interview revealed a gap in how businesses think about talent and potential. By addressing that gap, Vertex hasn't just changed my life, it's changing an industry. As applause filled the room, James caught Reid's eye. The Billionaire CEO gave him a subtle nod of appreciation, one parent to another, one human being to another, acknowledging the unexpected journey that had brought them both to this moment of transformation. That evening, as James tucked Emma into bed beneath her purple ceiling dotted with glow-in-the-dark stars, she asked a question that stopped him in his tracks. "Daddy, do you think Mr. Reid would have chased after someone else if we hadn't needed that job so badly?" James considered this. "I don't know, sweetheart." "Why do you ask?" "Because sometimes the best things happen when we're most scared," she said with the simple wisdom of childhood. "You were scared that day, and now you're not anymore. And Mr. Reid seems less sad than when we first met him." James smiled in the dim light. "You're pretty observant." "He told me his wife would have liked me," Emma continued. "He said she was good at seeing what people needed, just like you are with your app." James sat on the edge of her bed, struck by the connections that formed between people in their moments of vulnerability. "I think you're right, Em. Sometimes our greatest struggles lead us to exactly where we need to be, and to the people who need us just as much as we need them." As Emma drifted off to sleep, James thought about the chain of events that had led him here: a failed interview, a ringing phone, a CEO with his own painful past, and the courage to chase down a stranger on a busy street. None of it made sense by conventional wisdom, yet it had created something remarkable. The next morning, James arrived at work to find Reid waiting in his office. "I've been thinking," the CEO said without preamble. "The Sullivan principle needs to extend beyond our walls. I want to create a foundation that helps single parents in technology find flexible, supportive employment. Would you consider heading it up alongside your current role?" James didn't hesitate. "On one condition." Reid raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "We call it the Second Chance Foundation. Because that's what you gave me when you ran after me that day." Reid extended his hand. "Deal. But you should know something, James. That day, when I saw you checking your phone during the interview, thinking about your daughter even as you fought for a job to support her, you weren't getting a second chance. I was." As they shook hands, James understood that sometimes the most powerful business decisions aren't made in boardrooms or based on spreadsheets. They happen in moments of human connection, when someone sees value where others see only weakness, and has the courage to chase down possibility as it walks away. The Second Chance Foundation would go on to help hundreds of struggling parents find meaningful work that accommodated their family responsibilities. And each year, on the anniversary of his failed interview, James would receive the same text message from Alexander Reid: Thank you for walking away that day, so I could learn how to follow." In the years that followed, as Vertex Technologies grew into one of the most successful and humane workplaces in the country, people often asked James about the secret to his unexpected career trajectory. His answer was always the same. Success isn't about never failing. It's about being seen in your moment of failure by someone who recognizes that your greatest vulnerability might also